That brings us to the front of the counter. House Bill number 1, House Bill 1688. Representative Durham, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill has an amendment that makes the bill. It's drafting code 12464.
Is that the only amendment on the bill?
That is the only amendment to my knowledge.
Does that rewrite the bill?
It does.
Do we have a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Now we're on the amendment. On the amendment.
Basically, I know there'll be a lot of questions, but here's the gist of the bill. People have a right to free speech, but they do not have a right to keep people from going to work. If you prevent ingress and egress from people going to work, it would be a C misdemeanor, the same level as a traffic ticket. If you did the same thing at someone's home, it would be a B misdemeanor. If you did it at someone's home and it incited violence or intimidation, it would be an A misdemeanor. So there's definitions that lays out a lot of different aspects, but that's the 30,000-foot view of what the bill does.
Representative Durham, I've been asked to ask several questions on your bill, so if you don't mind, I'll just read these and let you respond to the questions. Under current Tennessee law, already provides for criminal penalties for any person who, without legal privilege, intentionally, knowingly or recklessly obstructs a highway or other passageway under the Tennessee Code. How is this legislation different from what is already provided by our current law, and what additional benefits or protection will it offer the citizens of Tennessee?
Well,
and this is for the record, so we can.
There's two different criminal statutes. Trespassing is when you go on someone else's property without their consent. This is preventing people from going to and from work. It's just, sometimes criminal statutes have similar elements, but they're not exactly the same thing. Plus, this would have 3 different levels depending on how you did it. So there'd be different things. Your second question, I'm sorry.
The second part of that is what additional benefits or protections will it offer the citizens of Tennessee?
The public policy behind it, I have a Tennessean article here that says that Tennessee unions quietly added 31,000 members in 2013, representing the largest percentage increase in union membership in the country. I just feel like if that's such a growing part of our economy that we need to take some preemptive measures to ensure that our businesses have the rights and protections that they should be entitled.
Representative Turner, you're recognized. Thank you for your answers to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really do not see, based upon the comments that the chair has made, where this bill is required. The fact that the union membership has increased by X numbers that you have quoted does not necessarily mean that the union is going to disregard or disobey the laws that we currently have on the books. The First Amendment gives us, let's see which one of these, if I got it right. Second Amendment gives us the right to protest by the Constitution.
Second Amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that what she said? Oh, I said the first to begin with. I thought she corrected me. Okay, I'm sorry.
First.
I said the First Amendment, and I thought I heard someone correct me. But going back to this, I really, with all that we have, and I know that each one of us as legislators has the right to bring forth the law that we think will, in our own way, will make life better for others. But having a bill, drawing up a bill based upon the assumption that because unions are increasing in numbers and speculations, and we already have laws on the books that cover this. Personally, I have been on the picket line many times. We were not allowed to get off of the sidewalk. We were not allowed to interfere with the traffic at all. We were, depending upon where we were, we had to get if we were protesting something and the numbers were large enough, we had to have a permit from the city. indicating the number of people we anticipated, the route we were going to take, how long it was going to take. We were given the rules as to what was and was not permissible. We followed those rules. We carried our picket signs. Our message was gotten over, and so I see nothing in your bill that I have not experienced where we were orderly and followed the rules and regulations. And so based upon the response that to the question that the chairman has given, and my personal experience in working with unions, people have the right to protest in those instances where they feel an injustice is being inflicted upon them. Rules and regulations so that they do not harm nor impede the progress of those who are not involved in that picket are also necessary, and those that I have seen have adhered to that policy. If there has been any violation, then there, with the electronics, with the videotapes, etc., that are now available, those persons have been detained and have been judged and accordingly. So, though your intent, I just do not see this as being necessary, because the laws are already on the books, and I know you don't, well, I don't say I don't know, but it just seems to be another attempt to interfere with the union's right to organize and to picket against under those conditions, or those conditions which they feel are unfair to those workers that they represent. Thank you.
Representative Turner, I believe that we have somebody here that would like to testify. Without objection, we'll go into recess and hear from, I believe we've got Matthew Capice here. You come forward, state your name and who you're with. And by the way, as we told everybody in the beginning, we're going to limit each of you to 5 minutes, because we've got several people that want to speak. So 5 minutes.
Thank you,
and Vice Chairman Pody, if you'd be our timekeeper.
Thank you, Chairman Eldridge. It's great to be back here in Tennessee. My name is Matthew Capice. I'm a representative with the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Mid-South Carpenters Regional Council of Carpenters, which is headquartered right here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Can you speak in the mic?
Yeah, it's how's that?
Can you pull it towards you? Is it
Okay,
on?
how's that?
Can you hear me all right? That's fine.
Okay. We rise here today to oppose the bill because it impermissibly imposes criminal sanctions on protected speech and seeks to regulate activity already regulated by federal law. And this bill would impose these sanctions on any organization engaged in protest activities directed at labor conditions. Not only unions, but if there are concerns about labor and employment practices by Tea Party groups, churches, civil rights organizations, and other grassroots groups that are engaged in protest activity regarding labor and employment conditions, this bill would also subject them to arrest. Now, this bill, the constitutional problem this bill raises is that it is putting criminal sanctions on a type of speech, or a mode of speech, which is picketing, which federal courts say is a mode of speech, and it also focuses on a subject matter of speech, which would be speech about labor and employment conditions, and those would be subject to, as I said, criminal sanctions. And this would unjustly infringe upon those federally protected free speech rights. Now, the bill does this by prohibiting what it calls mass picketing in the context of a labor dispute. So, if an organization wants to engage in mass picketing as defined by the bill about a labor condition, they would be subject to arrest. But if PETA shows up at a place of employment, at a business, and engages in what this bill calls mass picketing, directed at the subject matter of cruelty to animals, that would be okay. So it discriminates on the subject matter of speech and is therefore impermissible. In addition, mass picketing is already regulated by federal law, by the National Labor Relations Act. But your definition of mass picketing in this bill differs radically from what the National Labor Relations Board would call mass picketing. According to this bill, a single person who, as defined in this bill, would obstruct ingress or reasonable ingress or egress from a place of employment would be engaging in mass picketing and would be subject to arrest. Under federal law, mass picketing is a large group of people who are crammed into a place that prevents and obstructs entrance and exit from a place of employment, and that would be sanctioned under federal labor law. That would be against the law. Now, that's subsection E of the bill. If we go to subsection D of the bill, it prevents the pursuit of lawful work or employment disturbance. It prevents the pursuit of lawful work or employment by disturbance or nuisance. Let me read you something the federal court, the Supreme Court has to say about that. In the course of a labor dispute, labor organizations and employers are allowed to do things to provide economic pressure. For instance, the Supreme Court has said resort to economic weapons should more peaceful measures not avail is the right of the employer as well as the employee, and the state may not prohibit the use of such weapons. This bill would prohibit the use of such weapons, and therefore is contrary to this decision by the Supreme Court of the United States. Picketing can have as the object and have the result of discouraging people to cross a picket line. It could have the result of deliveries not being made to a business, which could be a nuisance. And under federal labor law, that's okay, because it's an economic weapon that we're allowed to have, and this bill would prohibit it.
Thanks, sir. That's your 5 minutes, and we appreciate that. Any questions of the Representative Pody? You're recognized.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that this would apply to everybody else that was protesting as well, like tea parties and so forth. The amendment doesn't take those out?
Correct. If I'm reading the same amendment.
Okay, do you have a drafting code on your amendment? In the lower right-hand corner?
Amended.
There should be a drafting code 012464.
That's it, yeah.
Okay. He's got the amendment.
So if I went to protest something myself, I would be subject to this?
Yes.
All right, even if it wasn't labor-related. If I went just to do a protest and I didn't like what the business was doing, I went and I protested, and this law applies to me, is what you're saying?
It would have to be labor-related.
Has to be labor-related. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Leader Cassidy, you recognize, sir.
I'm sure I misunderstood you, but I think we are in consensus that a group picketing and stopping egress and ingress to my home, you oppose. But I got the impression that you thought it was okay if one individual would to show up to my home and protest and stop the egress or the entrance or leaving of my home. Are you? Because that's what this bill does, and yet and again, I bet I heard wrong, but I want to hear you tell me you don't support an individual protesting at my home on union activities that would stop someone from coming in or leaving my home. Surely I misunderstood you.
Well, no, the bill here defines mass picketing as when you think of mass picketing, you think of tons of people. This bill can just be one person.
Right.
That's what that comment. And on the residential activity, that section of the bill even has problems because it it prevents picketing at residences, but only if it is on labor issues. PETA can show up at your house and picket, and that would be okay. But if another organization shows up and wants to protest a labor condition, that's not okay.
And to that point, that would be another committee, another bill. But I guess I just, as a leader in the labor movement, I would like to hear you say that you would condemn someone picketing an individual's home to stop that person from leaving or entering, or anyone from leaving that home.
Oh, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. But the problem with the bill is it discriminates on a subject matter of speech as it applies to the residential picketing. So in that sense, it violates the First Amendment and Equal Protection Clause.
But your First Amendment ends where my driveway begins.
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Anyone's, even
okay.
PETA.
Because there's instances in the past where those activities have occurred, and they've stopped me from shopping. They've stopped, they've stopped other individuals from their privacy. And I think this is a good bill. We want to make sure that, yes, you have your First Amendment to say what you want, but you don't have a First Amendment to dictate my enterprise and my activities of leaving my home or going where I'm shopping. And so I think we need to be really clear that First Amendment rights end basically at your nose, and mine begin where I'm not stopped to do what I want to do either. So, thank you.
Well, I would agree that no one has a right to block entrances or exits. I know when we engage in protest activities, we're very professional about it, and we do not do that. Now, we may cause a bit of a nuisance, though, from getting in and out of a place because we're walking past back and forth in front of an entrance, just like any other group would be engaging in such protest activities. And this bill would make that subject to arrest. Now, there's a big difference between absolutely blocking and causing a nuisance for you to get in and out of a place.
Representative Towns, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you again. My question for you, sir, is how does this bill apply to the press? The press was covering a labor issue, okay, in front of a company, tons of press, or you had some elected official that caught themselves on the wrong side of the law, and the press was camped out in front of their house, as the press has done across the country in many cases, with tons of press there where you may not be able to get in and out of your driveway with ease. How does the bill apply to that kind of exercising of speech, if you've looked at that?
There may be a problem if the press was there to investigate a labor issue. There may be a problem.
So you think that it could actually negatively impact the press, you're saying?
It's possible, yes.
Because there are many different interpretations of how it could be impacted, but you think that it could. Now, also, what I'm hearing from you is that based upon what you read, I don't know how extensively you've studied it, but do you think the bill as it stands, as it's offered to us, is it unconstitutional?
Oh, absolutely. And subsection I of the bill doesn't save the bill at all. Subsection I says that the bill doesn't intend to alter or modify federal law. Well, with all due respect, the legislature of Tennessee never had that authority to modify or alter federal law. So subsection I doesn't save the bill, and you have the whole rest of the bill, which is designed to chill speech by anyone or any group that is directed at labor conditions or employment practices. So the subsection I doesn't save the bill.
So do you see more than or a number of areas where it may be unconstitutional from your experience?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even you look at subsection H, it creates a whole new standard for getting an injunction. Normally, anyone else in Tennessee in order to get an injunction, would have to show irreparable harm. But not if you're engaged in a protest about employment conditions. That type of speech gets treated differently, and that's discriminatory, and that creates an equal protection problem and a First Amendment problem.
And there are case studies of this throughout our country's history, I would imagine that is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this preemption issue is well established in federal law. The Congress, through the National Labor Relations Act and the Supreme Court, have said that the National Labor Relations Act controls and regulates economic pressure activities by labor and by management, and that states need to tread very carefully when they seek to do the same. And this bill clearly steps over the line.
Okay. But you tell me personally, how long have you practiced?
1988.
Since 1988. And that's with labor on the side of labor or corporate or.
Oh gosh, I've been working on behalf of labor organizations since 1988.
Okay.
Even before then, 1984.
Okay.
But as an attorney since 1988.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Representative Johnny Turner, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The First Amendment, which you, in your testimony, you've already indicated that this law violates what our forefathers had in mind in establishing free speech. Congress shall not make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. This bill that is before us, particularly since it targets labor unions, violates the First Amendment. If, as one of my colleagues mentioned a moment ago, I wouldn't want anybody congregating in front of my house. But the First Amendment gives them that right unless they stop me from coming down my driveway, then I can call the police and accuse them of violating a law that addresses that. Unless they forcibly try to pull me out of my car or do something. But as long as they congregate peaceably and they follow the laws not only of the federal government, but the laws that the local government makes that are in compliance with the federal government, they have that right. I don't like it, but they have that right. Now, if I wanted to completely exclude myself from the possibility that anybody could come to my house and picket against me for anything, then I could move to a gated community. That's my right. And so, for the reasons that have already been given, and from the testimony that you have given, this bill is another attack on organized labor. The language regarding criminal trespass can certainly be challenged on constitutional grounds on the basis of freedom of speech. The language prohibiting union representatives from conducting union business on private property violates, as you have indicated, Section 8 of the NLRA, which legally permits such activity. This bill does not meet the standards which would allow for the infringement of free speech guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. Thank you.
I would agree.
Thank you, Representative Turner. You're recognized. Can you make it real quick? Because
I
we're spending too much time on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree, but it not only just imposes these unlawful, I would say unlawful restrictions on labor unions conducting these speech, but it's anyone. It could be a civil rights organization or a grassroots organization engaged in focusing in on picketing activity to protest labor conditions. So that would make it unjustified as well.
Sir, we thank you for being here today and appreciate your comments. And you can be seated. We appreciate your comments. We do have somebody else, I think, that wanted to testify, but I think a lot has been said. Is Sarah Adair out there wanting to say? Can you keep this down to about 1 minute? Because I think everything's been said that you probably want to say, Sarah. Thank you, Ms. Adair.
Hello. Thank you, committee.
Tell us who you are and who you're with.
My name is Sarah Adair. I'm with the Tennessee State Employees Association. I do appreciate all the comments that I've heard today. The former speaker echoed some of the things that I wanted to state. I just wanted the committee to know that TSEA has flagged this bill for concern because we're concerned as to where does this lead to. It brings up a lot of issues that aren't problems in this state and that are already covered by law. And if we start separating labor issues from any other issue, we're leading down a scary path. We do not picket. In general, we are a voluntary labor organization, but when you segregate labor from any other issue out there, you're creating a precedent that I believe is unconstitutional. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adair, for your comments. Any questions to the speaker? Thank you, Ms. Adair. Without objection, we'll go back into session. We need a motion on the amendment so we can properly. We have a motion. Do we have a second? The amendment's properly before us. Representative Durham, you recognize very quickly. Susan Lynn, Chair Lady Lynn, chairs this committee because of a personal situation with a little grandson. Been in the hospital. She couldn't be here today, so she asked me to fill in for her. So, Representative Durham, you recognized.
I didn't know the First Amendment allowed you to prevent people going to and from work. I just thought that was really interesting. I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. I didn't know it said that.
Thanks, sir. Well, we got the amendment properly before us. Are we ready to vote without objection? Representative Pody, you're recognized.
We brought up a constitutional issue, and I'd just like to turn to legal and get how do they feel? Is this is a constitutionally suspect bill, or is it in good order?
Michelle Gaskin, attorney for the committee. Legal does not have an opinion on this bill as far as the constitutionality of it. That would be a decision for a trier of fact or a judge to decide if a suit was filed challenging the constitutionality of this. As far as First Amendment rights, if the state is going to regulate speech, the state has to have a compelling state interest as well as impose reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. So the language needs to be content neutral, but that's as far as legal's opinion goes for this bill. Does that answer your question, Representative Pody?
Thank you.
I was just informed by our leader Turner over there that they have requested the Attorney General's opinion on that for the record. Thank you. Representative Towns, you're recognized.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think regardless of where one may be as it relates to unions, their activity, union busting, that activity, or the right to assemble, the right to protest, regardless to that, I think that all of us probably circle the wagons as it relates to the Constitution of the United States. And none of us on this podium is, obviously, we're not constitutional specialists. We're not constitutional, really savvy as it relates to the depths of the Constitution, but we're concerned about whether something is constitutional or not in this country and in this state. I don't think intentionally that any of us want to harm the Constitution, because that's the document that we all try to live by, okay, which creates what we have. And we're going to say it's a civilized place for people to live, which prevents us from having the rule of the gun, where you have the coup d'etats all over the world because they don't live by a document that everybody believes in and trusts. So there have been some, while we are not experts, there have been some constitutional questions raised by the gentleman that testified earlier. And that constitutional question is something that I think we have to consider very, very carefully. I suspect that it is questionable as it relates to the Constitution of the United States. Now, Representative, as it relates to this bill, if you will, tell me what it is that you really, what are you trying to accomplish? What brings this about? What brings this piece of legislation to us today?
I'll address that. Let me also
Please.
address one other thing you said, if that's okay. Section 2, if any provision of this act or the application thereof to any person or circumstance is held invalid, such invalidity shall not affect other provisions or applications of the act, which can be given effect without the invalid provision or application, and to that end the provisions of this act are declared to be severable. So even if something weren't, the rest of the bill would still stand. I think they failed to mention that. Your other question was, why am I, what was the, let me get it right.
Yeah, just simple. What is the need for, in your opinion, this legislation today?
Well, since we're, you know, I demonstrated that statistic earlier. If, you know, if we're going to have a lot of...
the statistic, repeat that statistic for me.
Okay, let me grab it. I think it was the Bureau of Labor Statistics of Tennessee quoted. It's Tennessee unions quietly added 31,000 members in 2013, representing the largest percentage increase in union membership in the country. I just feel like we owe it to the people of Tennessee to just not regulate the content of someone's speech, but to make sure that when people are lawfully exercising their First Amendment right to free speech, that we create protections for those companies and the workers therein and the people going to and from their house. If no one is interfering with your right to go to and from work or to and from your house, then they shouldn't have a problem with this bill.
Well, what you're saying is this, okay? It's predicated upon you saying there's an increase in union membership, I would imagine. All right, now, and that there's a need to protect companies, okay? Companies of this country, companies of this state of Tennessee, they don't need that kind of protection. They have lobbyists, they have all kind of resources. If it was a problem, by now we would know about it. Okay, now, if there's a personal reason that it's being driven, that's something totally different. But companies, I've not heard one company, because of an increase in labor activity or people become parts of a union, that they need us to protect them with some kind of law. Okay?
That's like saying because a bridge hasn't fallen yet, we shouldn't fix it. I mean, if we...
No, that's not like saying since the bridge hadn't fallen, we shouldn't fix it, okay? That's not like saying that at all. What I'm saying is this, is that it's predicated upon, it gives you consternation that there's been an increase in the number of people that have decided that they want to be a part of a union. That's their decision. Freely, based upon the rules of that particular company, whatever company it is, A, B, C, D, E, or F, it doesn't matter. They did it within the rules of the company. And they should have a right to do that.
They do, and they will under the bill.
But what we're doing is we're trying to restrict that right.
No, as long as...
No, you're talking about putting people in jail. That's
No,
what you're talking
actually,
about doing.
that was actually wrong. We have a cite and release statute in Tennessee, so they would just be given a C misdemeanor citation.
I don't need a citation if I'm out picketing. Why would I need a citation? Because what that does, that puts me in the system. I don't want a citation because I'm out.
People from going to and from work?
No. People typically don't protest to keep you from going to and from work.
Gentlemen, what we're getting into here is a running debate. So
Okay, Mr. Chairman, let me get done, okay? All right. People don't generally protest to prevent somebody from going to work. They're protesting to try to get some conditions changed or this, that, and other, okay? Now, many of us have been around protests, and people are not stopped from going to work. Obviously, it's wrong to be in front of somebody's driveway or this, that, and other. That's not the deal. But I remind you of this, okay? The history of this country and how this country has come to be where it is. Part of it is because of what unions have done with child labor laws and with safety and non-discriminatory things as it relates to women and safety conditions, OSHA, all these kinds of things have happened because of that. Now, I'm going to tell you something else, all right? What I sense is this, that what we're doing, we're stuffing, we're pressurizing the communities all across this state as it relates to them being able to speak their minds, okay? Now, don't think that our documents are so sacred that people won't violate when they're pressurized to a degree where they blow up, okay? We're not supposed to create criminals as elected officials up here for minor, crazy kinds of things because of my personal reasons, okay? We have to let people in this community, in this country, vent because they're going to do it one way or other. It's just a matter of time. So we have to, as men of leadership, we have to have some wisdom to figure out how we're going to protect our country and our document, because you can push people too far. And when you push people too far, you get the same reaction that you have in the rest of these countries, because people are not going to take it. It's just that simple. So we got to be very thoughtful about what we're trying to do. And most people here do know it, because if people decide they're going to protest, you're not going to stop it. People don't mind going to jail for what they believe in. People don't mind fighting for what they believe in. But more importantly, I don't think we need to violate the Constitution of the state of Tennessee, Constitution of the United States of America. We shouldn't do that. We should be tread very carefully with that. That's all I'm going to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. Representative Pody, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I had some issues, but as long as we got Attorney General opinion, I'm comfortable enough that we move this into full committee and just kind of wait until we get the Attorney General opinion. We can debate it there, be even more people to weigh in, good or bad.
Are you calling for the question?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second? Yes. Are you ready to vote on the amendment? Okay, without objection, we're voting on the amendment, which makes the bill. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Ayes have it. The amendment goes on. We're back on the bill as amended. You ready to vote? Representative Towns? Roll call. We're ready to vote. Without objection, we're voting on the bill as amended. Clerk, take the roll.
Representative Kesta? Aye. Representative Pody? Aye. Representative Towns? Chairman? Aye. Representative Turner?
Good try. That's two.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Thank you.
House Bill 1688 has passed and will go on to the full committee for further debate. And by that time, hopefully we'll have the Attorney General